Ethan Voss set off with a drone team for a solo descent into Whispering Gorge, just after dawn under clear skies. He was looking for answers. 11 years earlier, his brother Nathan vanished somewhere inside. But Ethan never came back. For 11 years, no one found a single clue, until a drone pilot, scanning archived footage through a fogged-up lens, spotted something wedged into the canyon wall. A leather journal with a symbol no one had seen in over a decade, Nathan's personal mark. What they found next would rewrite everything the maps ever claimed, and reveal the canyon's most unsettling secret. The first sharp rays of dawn sliced through the jagged spires of Zion Ridge, casting long, flickering shadows across the rocky canyon floor. Ethan Voss stood at the edge of the outcrop, the desert wind tugging at his jacket, carrying the scent of dry earth and distant pine. His fingers traced the worn leather strap of his climbing pack, the familiar weight grounding him even as his mind raced. The sun's light caught the dust motes swirling in the still morning air, painting a fragile golden haze over the vast, raw expanse below. The Whispering Gorge yawned before him, its narrow walls twisting like ancient bones, a silent challenge etched in stone and shadow. Ethan's gaze hardened as he scanned the route he would take. Years of experience told him every crevice and ledge held a story, a danger, or a secret. But this was no ordinary climb. This was a reckoning. 11 years ago, his brother Nathan had vanished somewhere in this unforgiving labyrinth, swallowed by the canyon's silent depths. The memory tightened in Ethan's chest, the ache of unanswered questions, the gnawing guilt that had chased him through sleepless nights and failed search parties. Now, with a steady breath, he steadied himself to face the place that had taken so much from him. He bent down, methodically checking his gear. Carabiners, ropes, harnesses, the compact first aid kit, all neatly arranged, each piece a lifeline. His hands moved with practiced ease, but his heart hammered a steady rhythm beneath his calm exterior. The morning chill bit at his fingers, but the dry heat that would soon descend into the canyon was already making itself known in the stiff breeze. Ethan pulled on his gloves and adjusted his helmet, the leather strap clicking securely under his chin. "Are you ready for this?" The voice came from behind, low and cautious. Lucas Merrick, a lanky man in his early 30s with sharp eyes and a steady presence, stepped forward, holding a sleek drone controller. Ethan didn't turn. "I have to be," he said quietly, his voice carrying a mix of determination and something darker. Regret, maybe, or fear. He didn't want to admit it, not even to himself, but the canyon had a way of making every step feel like a gamble with fate. Lucas studied him for a moment. "It's not just the climb, is it? It's him." His tone was soft but direct, the drone buzzing faintly beside them as if eager to take flight. Ethan finally met his gaze, eyes shadowed but resolute. "Nathan was my brother. I'm not leaving until I find out what happened." The words hung between them like a challenge to the unforgiving silence of the ridge. Behind them, Grant Hale, the expedition coordinator, approached with a clipboard and a furrowed brow. "The forecast isn't looking good," Grant said briskly, nodding toward the swirling clouds gathering overhead. "The gorge's weather can shift in minutes. We need to be prepared for anything." His eyes flicked to Ethan's calm demeanor, wary but respectful. "You've done this before, but this time it's different." Ethan nodded without hesitation. "I know the risks. I've prepared for them. This isn't just about the climb. It's about closure." His voice held an edge, fierce, unyielding. The canyon below whispered its secrets, the wind threading through narrow crevices like a voice from another time. As the three men exchanged glances, the weight of what lay ahead settled heavily over them. The rugged cliffs of Zion Ridge stretched endlessly, jagged and imposing, as if daring Ethan to step into the unknown. Somewhere beneath the surface, the canyon held memories of a brother lost, of paths never taken, of truths buried in silence. Ethan tightened the straps of his pack one last time, the leather creaking softly. He glanced back once more at the team, their faces etched with concern and hope, before turning toward the precipice. The sun climbed higher, igniting the desert air with a fierce glow that promised both illumination and trial. His heartbeat quickened as he took his first careful step down the rocky slope, eyes scanning every shadow, every crack, every whisper of movement. The canyon seemed to breathe around him, alive, watchful, indifferent. He wouldn't just disappear without a trace. I need to find him. Ethan stepped out of his rugged SUV onto the dusty ground at the canyon's edge, the early morning light painting the rocky landscape in hues of burnt orange and soft gold. The air was crisp, carrying a faint scent of pine and dry earth, but beneath that calm lay a tension that buzzed just beneath the surface. His boots crunched on loose gravel as he surveyed the small group gathered around the portable base camp. 5 men clustered near equipment crates and folding chairs, faces sharp with a mix of anticipation and unease. Lucas Merrick stood apart, eyes glued to the array of monitors set up on a foldable table. His fingers hovered over the control sticks of the sleek drone console, the newest model he had painstakingly modified for this expedition. The drone's matte black frame gleamed under the sun's rising rays, its camera lenses promising to peer into every crevice of the treacherous gorge. Lucas's lips twitched in a tight smile, a blend of excitement and barely concealed anxiety. This wasn't just about watching a live feed. It was about proving his technology could change how search and rescue missions were conducted. He dreamed of this moment, the chance to revolutionize an industry that still relied heavily on manpower and guesswork. Yet beneath his enthusiasm was a nervous edge. What if the canyon swallowed Ethan whole? What if the drone failed when it mattered most? Lucas shook off the creeping doubt as the voice of Grant Hale cut through the hum of preparation. Grant, the expedition's coordinator, radiated cautious pragmatism. His tall frame leaned forward slightly, arms crossed tightly over his chest, eyes narrowing as he scrutinized the swirling clouds above the cliffs. The forecast's holding, but the wind's picking up faster than expected. Grant warned, his voice low but firm. Those narrow ledges and loose rock won't forgive a slip. I'm not convinced this is the right day for a solo descent, especially with this fog rolling in. His gaze flicked toward Ethan, who was methodically checking his climbing gear, a picture of calm determination. Ethan glanced up, his dark eyes steady. "I've been through worse," he said quietly, voice resolute but not without warmth. He glanced back at the towering canyon walls, their jagged faces shrouded partially by a thin veil of mist creeping along the rocks. "If I don't do this, the mystery will never end." Ethan's boot struck the loose gravel with a crunch that echoed faintly against the canyon walls, each step deliberate as he descended further into Whispering Gorge. The overcast sky hung low, a heavy blanket of gray that dimmed the morning light and muffled the usual sounds of the wild. The air was thick, humid from a recent rain, carrying the sharp scent of damp earth and pine resin. A cold breeze twisted through the narrow passageways, brushing against Ethan's face like a ghostly whisper, urging him onward yet warning him to tread carefully. His eyes scanned every ledge and crevice, muscles taut beneath his climbing gear. Just minutes into the descent, something caught his gaze. A frayed climbing harness snagged awkwardly on a jagged rock outcrop, its faded webbing fluttering weakly in the breeze. Ethan froze, heart tightening. He knelt, brushing dirt and pine needles away to reveal a metal carabiner rusted by time but unmistakably familiar. This was no ordinary piece of equipment. It was Nathan's. His fingers trembled as they lifted a worn, leather-bound notebook wedged beneath a stone nearby. The cover was cracked and stained, its edges curling with age. Ethan opened it carefully, the pages brittle but still legible. His eyes darted over hurried, scrawled notes and cryptic sketches. Weather patterns, strange sounds, shifting rock formations, all hastily recorded in Nathan's familiar handwriting. Questions flooded his mind. Why had Nathan left these behind? Had he dropped them in haste, fleeing from danger? Or was it a message meant for someone to find? "Lucas." Ethan's voice cracked slightly as he keyed his radio. "I found something, old climbing gear and a notebook. This changes everything." From the base camp, Lucas's voice came back, tinged with static and concern. "Got the feed, Ethan, but it's glitchy, signals dropping in and out. The canyon's acting up again. You sure you're okay down there? Ethan glanced up, noting the creeping tendrils of fog curling between the cliffs like living fingers. The mist swallowed distant rocks and obscured the path ahead, swallowing sound and light alike. The silence was unnatural, a heavy stillness that pressed down on him, making every breath feel labored. "I'm fine," Ethan said, though his voice carried a hint of tension. "But the fog's rolling in fast. Keep the drone steady. I need eyes up here." Back at base camp, Lucas's fingers danced over the controls, struggling to maintain contact as the drone bobbed in the turbulent air. Moments of crisp video gave way to static, then to brief blackouts that left the team holding their breath in silence. Each time the feed returned, Ethan's figure looked smaller, more vulnerable, swallowed by the gray haze. Grant Hale's voice cut through the radio, calm but firm. "Ethan, the weather's deteriorating. Visibility's dropping below safe levels. You need to consider turning back." Ethan's jaw clenched, eyes narrowing against the fog that blurred his vision. He wasn't about to give up now, not when he had come so far, not when the signs were right there. His fingers tightened around the notebook, the words on the pages burning in his mind like a promise and a curse. "I'm closer than ever," he replied steadily, though inside his chest, hope and fear warred fiercely. "I can feel it." The drone's video feed wavered, the image flickering in and out like a fragile flame caught in a breeze. Suddenly, through the thick gray haze of the fog, a shadow materialized, a figure clad in climbing gear, standing motionless, barely more than a silhouette against the swirling mist. Lucas Merrick's breath hitched as he leaned forward, fingers trembling slightly over the controls. Come on, he muttered, twisting the camera with careful precision, desperate to sharpen the blurry image. But the fog swallowed every attempt, twisting the figure into an unrecognizable blur. "Lucas, are you seeing this?" Grant Hale's voice crackled through the radio, edged with concern. He spoke quickly, each word measured but laced with urgency. "Ethan, you need to be careful. That fog's thickening faster than we expected. You could be walking straight into trouble you can't even see." Ethan's calm voice replied, unwavering and steady despite the rising tension on the other end of the line. "I know the risks, Grant, but I have to keep moving. That figure, whoever it is, it could be Nathan. I have to push through." His tone was low, deliberate, carrying the weight of years of hope and unanswered questions. Beneath his measured words, Lucas could hear the strain, the tight line Ethan walked between courage and desperation. Lucas's eyes darted between the monitors, heart pounding. The canyon, obscured by the relentless fog, felt less like a landscape and more like a living, breathing entity, secretive and watchful. The whir of the drone's motors filled the silent room, each mechanical buzz a fragile thread connecting them to Ethan out there, alone in the mist. On the screen, the figure's outline flickered again, only to dissolve into the milky whiteness. Shadows twisted and stretched in the fog, playing tricks on the eye. Lucas rubbed his temples, frustration and fear gnawing at him. He tapped the radio. "Ethan, if you can hear me, please confirm your position. We're seeing something, but the visibility is near zero. This isn't safe." There was a pause. Ethan's voice returned, softer now, almost swallowed by the static but resolute. "I'm near the canyon's deepest chamber. It's where Nathan left his last mark. I have to reach it no matter the cost." Grant's voice cut through again, sharper this time, the tension in his words unmistakable. "Ethan, listen to me. The fog is denser than anything I've seen here before. The canyon's conditions can change on a dime. You don't know what's lurking just beyond your sight. You need to think about turning back." Ethan's reply was slow but firm, a quiet defiance threaded through the static. "I can't. I've come too far to stop now. If I don't find what's real in this fog, the mystery stays buried forever. I'll be cautious, but I'm moving forward." The drone camera lens began to fog from the humidity, moisture beads blurring the already obscured view. Lucas hurried to activate the lens heaters, but progress was sluggish against the natural elements. The image dimmed, the faint glow of the fog swallowing the fragile silhouette completely. "Hold on," "Ethan?" Lucas whispered. The words meant more for himself than anyone else. "We're watching you." The room around Lucas was hushed, the tension tangible. Grant stood near the window, arms crossed, eyes narrowed as he stared at the static screen, his usually calm demeanor cracked by worry. "This fog isn't just weather," Grant said grimly. "It feels unnatural, like the canyon itself is fighting us." Lucas swallowed hard, nodding even though Grant couldn't see him. The drone's battery warning beeped faintly, an unwelcome reminder of how precarious their connection truly was. Time was slipping away, swallowed in the dense gray silence. Suddenly, Ethan's voice came back over the radio. Voice calm but a thread of urgency woven beneath. "I have to know what's real and what's not." The drone's feed flickered violently, the swirling fog momentarily parting like a curtain to reveal a fragile glimmer of hope. There, etched against the sheer rock face and barely visible through the thick, white mist, lay a tiny campsite, a cluster of weathered canvas stretched thin against the wind, its edges frayed and stained by years of exposure. Scattered tools lay abandoned on the rocky ledge. A cracked climbing helmet, a twisted carabiner, and a coiled rope frayed at the ends. But it was the small, worn leather journal resting at the center of the site that sent a jolt through Ethan's chest. His voice, usually steady and measured, betrayed a flicker of excitement and caution as he whispered, "I see it. A camp. There's a journal, too." His breath came sharp and shallow, as if the very air around him had thickened with possibility. Lucas, his eyes glued to the screen, reached instinctively for the zoom controls. His fingers trembled, betraying the tension in his lean frame. "Hold on, zooming in now," he murmured, his tone tight with focus. The feed sharpened, revealing the journal's cover embossed with a symbol Ethan knew by heart, a circle enclosing a stylized mountain peak, Nathan's personal insignia, painstakingly carved into the leather. Lucas exhaled slowly, eyes wide. That's definitely his." His voice cracked with disbelief and hope. Across the radio, Grant Hale's voice cut in, calm but edged with urgency. "Ethan, secure your position. Don't risk moving until the fog clears. This isn't normal. This mist is thickening, almost like it's resisting your approach." The concern in Grant's measured tone pulled at Ethan's nerves, but the lure of the discovery was a siren's call he couldn't resist. Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears as he scanned the ledge with a mixture of awe and caution. Every rock seemed heavier, every shadow deeper. His hands clenched the radio tightly, knuckles white beneath the worn fabric of his gloves. "Grant," he replied firmly, voice low and unyielding, "I can't just wait. Nathan was here maybe longer than we thought. I have to see that journal. I need to know what he was going through." A brief pause filled the static before Grant responded, his tone sharper now. "Ethan, listen. This fog isn't natural. You're pushing into something beyond the physical. Be careful." The canyon's oppressive silence seemed to press against Ethan from all sides, thick and suffocating. The mist curled like living fingers around the ledge, obscuring edges and swallowing sounds. A faint chill gnawed at his skin despite the exertion, as if the canyon itself was warning him to turn back. Yet, every instinct screamed forward, toward answers, toward truth. He took a cautious step closer to the journal, his boots crunching softly on the gravel. The scent of damp leather and cold stone filled the air, mingling with the faintest hint of smoke, remnants of a fire long extinguished. Ethan's fingers brushed the journal's cracked cover, tracing the insignia as if to confirm its reality. His mind raced with questions. How had Nathan survived here? What had he endured? Why had he left these clues scattered like breadcrumbs? The weight of unresolved guilt pressed heavily on his chest. The years of silence, the endless search, the gnawing doubt that maybe he hadn't looked hard enough. But now, with the journal in reach, the past was tangible, raw, and painfully close. He snapped a quick photo with his helmet camera, careful not to disturb anything else. "Lucas, can you get a better look inside? Any pages visible?" Lucas's voice crackled with static. "I'm trying, but the fog keeps distorting the lens. It's like it's fighting us at every turn." Suddenly, A cold gust swept through the ledge, carrying with it a whisper, indistinct but haunting, like a breath of wind shaped into voices long lost. Ethan stiffened, eyes darting to the swirling fog. The hairs on the back of his neck prickled with unease. "Did you hear that?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah," Lucas answered, voice tight. "It's unsettling, almost like the canyon itself is alive." Grant's warning echoed again, sharper this time. "Ethan, you need to be careful. The canyon holds its secrets tight, and it doesn't like to be disturbed." But Ethan's gaze was fixed on the journal, the symbol of his brother's presence, a beacon in the endless gray. His breath steadied, resolve hardening like stone. He knew the danger was real, the risks mounting, but the truth was worth every shadow, every heartbeat of fear. He pocketed the journal carefully and turned back toward the radio, voice steady and determined. "This changes everything. Nathan was here. I know it." Ethan sat huddled by the weak glow of his flickering lantern, the small flame casting wavering shadows across the worn pages of Nathan's leather-bound journal. The night pressed in close around the campsite, the cold seeping through his jacket and biting into his skin. Every rustle of wind, every distant crack of shifting rock, seemed amplified in the stillness, making the canyon feel less like a place and more like a living, breathing presence watching him. His fingers trembled slightly as he traced the jagged handwriting, notes scrawled in haste, fragments of thoughts filled with unease and warning. The entries spoke of things that didn't belong. Strange noises echoing from deep within the gorge, low murmurs that seemed to ripple through the rock itself, as if the canyon were whispering secrets just beyond hearing. Nathan wrote of rock formations that moved subtly over time, shifting like giant stone guardians rearranging their positions, altering the path for reasons unknown. Most chilling was the mention of a hidden passage, concealed behind a curtain of moss and shadow, deeper than any explorer had dared venture. Nathan confessed a haunting dread of this place, writing that he feared what lay beyond but felt compelled, almost drawn, to uncover its mysteries. The final words on the page were smeared and frantic, ending with a warning that sent a cold shiver through Ethan's spine. "The canyon remembers those who trespass." Ethan closed the journal slowly, the weight of those words settling in his chest like a stone. He leaned back against the jagged wall of the ledge, eyes scanning the darkened outlines of the cliffs above and below. The fog had thickened further, curling like ghostly fingers around the rocks, swallowing shapes whole and warping the landscape into something unreal. The silence was dense and oppressive, punctuated only by the faint crackle of the lantern and the distant sigh of wind threading through crevices. His radio crackled, breaking the heavy quiet. "Ethan, you copy? Lucas here." The voice was steady, but there was an edge of tension beneath the calm. Ethan adjusted the receiver closer. "Loud and clear. What's the status on your end?" "Going over the drone footage again," Lucas said, his voice tight with unease. "There's something weird in the fog. I can't explain it. Faint shapes moving just beyond the drone's range, like shadows but with form. They're watching you." His words were hesitant, like he wasn't sure if saying them aloud would make them real. Ethan swallowed hard. "Watching me? You mean people?" "Not exactly," Lucas replied, voice dropping. "It's like the fog itself has eyes." The thought unsettled Ethan more than he wanted to admit. He glanced toward the swirling mist, imagining it thickening, alive, aware. The canyon had always been unpredictable, but this felt different, almost hostile. "Keep the feed coming," Ethan said firmly. "If something's out there, I want to know." Minutes passed in heavy silence. Ethan's thoughts circled relentlessly, tracing back through Nathan's journal, piecing together fragments of his brother's last days. Nathan had ventured where others wouldn't, driven by curiosity but trapped by fear. What had he found? What had changed him? Ethan felt the weight of unanswered questions crushing down. His heartbeat quickened. Was he walking into a trap set by the canyon itself? Or was this the path to his brother? He stood, stretching cramped muscles, the rough stone underfoot grounding him. The campfire's faint warmth was swallowed by the cold air, but he refused to light a bigger fire, not with unknown forces lurking so close. Instead, he pulled his jacket tighter and scanned the fog-shrouded ledge. His breath formed clouds, disappearing quickly into the night. Somewhere beyond, the canyon breathed, waiting. Back at base camp, the radio buzzed again. Lucas's voice was quieter, strained. "Ethan, I'm picking up more movement. Something's definitely out here. Shapes that vanish whenever the drone gets close." Ethan's jaw clenched. "I'm not alone in this canyon. That much is clear." The line went silent, leaving Ethan alone with the journal, the fog, and the pressing sense that the landscape itself was alive, watching, remembering every step he took. His mind raced between hope and dread. Hope that the journal would guide him to Nathan. Dread that it was a lure into something far darker. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. This was no longer just a physical climb. It was a journey into the unknown, where the line between reality and fear blurred. Somewhere in the shadows, the canyon waited, patient and eternal. There's more here than rock and wind. Something alive. Ethan's fingers trembled slightly as he rolled up the worn leather journal, its pages heavy with Nathan's desperate words. The flickering lantern light cast restless shadows on the damp rock walls of the cramped campsite, but dawn was breaking outside, or so the weak glow seeping through the fog suggested. He stuffed the journal carefully into his pack and tightened the straps, his breath steady despite the chill crawling up his spine. The swirling fog outside had thickened overnight, wrapping the canyon in a dense, suffocating cloak that swallowed sound and swallowed light. With a final glance around the meager shelter, Ethan stepped out into the gray haze, every sense straining. The cold bit at his cheeks, and the moisture clung to his skin like a second layer. His boots crunched softly on the gravel, but the silence that followed was absolute, pressing close as if the canyon itself was holding its breath. Ahead, the passage Nathan described yawned like a dark wound in the earth, a narrow slit carved between jagged stone faces, half hidden by creeping moss and loose rubble. Ethan's heart hammered, not from fear but the pounding need to press on, to chase the faintest thread of hope left for his brother. Over the radio crackled Lucas's voice, tense and cautious. "Ethan, the fog's messing with the drone again. Signal's weak, some kind of interference, or maybe the canyon's playing tricks. I'm trying to get a better read, but I can only catch glimpses of something moving. Dark shapes, I think, just outside the camera's range." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I see nothing but mist here. Whatever's out there, it's waiting." He swallowed the lump in his throat and took a deliberate step forward, the rock beneath his feet uneven and slick. The walls of the passage felt like they were closing in, rough stones scraping the sides of his pack as he squeezed through tighter spots. The air grew colder, thinner, and carried whispers, not voices, but sounds that echoed strangely, bouncing off unseen crevices. Grant's voice came sharp and urgent through the radio. "Ethan, this is madness. The canyon's conditions are worsening. You're risking everything. Turn back. Prioritize your safety." Ethan paused, fingers curling around a jagged edge for balance. His eyes flicked upward to where faint light tried to pierce the fog. "I'm not turning back, Grant. Not now. Not ever." His voice was low but resolute, carrying the weight of years of guilt and unanswered questions. The obsession was no longer a choice. It was a necessity, the only way to claw out the truth that had haunted him for over a decade. Deeper into the passage, the floor crumbled beneath his step with a startled crack, sending a cloud of dust into the cold air. Ethan froze, heart leaping, then inched forward more cautiously. The walls suddenly shifted, narrowing so tightly he had to press his chest against cold stone on one side and rough moss on the other. A sudden drop loomed ahead, too steep and dark to see the bottom. He reached into his pack for the climbing rope, securing it carefully to a sturdy outcrop before inching down, muscles taut with tension. Every sound was amplified, the scrape of his gloves on rock, the labored rasp of his breathing, the soft thuds of his boots. Somewhere behind him, a faint noise echoed, a hollow groan or perhaps a distant rock slide. His mind fought the rising panic, pushing it aside with the same iron determination that had carried him this far. The canyon was testing him, and he knew it. The fog shifted again, thickening into swirling tendrils that brushed his face like cold fingers. Ethan's eyes darted, searching for movement, shadows that might be real or figments of exhaustion and fear. He paused to listen, catching a faint, indistinct sound, maybe footsteps, or wind curling through narrow cracks. A pulse quickened in his ears. "Lucas, do you see anything?" Ethan whispered urgently into the radio, voice barely cutting through the static. "Just something. Figures moving. Too dark to make out. It's like the canyon's alive, watching." Lucas's voice was tight, strained, betraying his unease. "Be careful." Ethan swallowed hard. The weight of the journal in his pack pressed against his back, a reminder of the path Nathan had taken. One fraught with danger, mystery, and shadows beyond reason. His every instinct screamed to turn around, but his heart would not allow it. He wasn't just fighting the canyon. He was fighting the silence, the forgotten years, the gnawing emptiness left by his brother's absence. With a steadying breath, he moved forward again, the passage twisting and turning like a living maze. The stone walls seemed to pulse faintly in the dim light, the very air thick with anticipation and dread. Every step echoed a promise. He would not be swallowed by this place. He would find Nathan, or he would be lost trying. "I won't turn back. Not now. Not ever." Ethan's foot caught on a jagged stone, sending a sharp scrape across his palm as he steadied himself in the dim light. His breath came in steady, controlled bursts, but the glow ahead was unlike anything he had ever seen, soft and pulsating, as if the cavern itself was breathing. The walls, slick with moisture, shimmered faintly, revealing intricate carvings that twisted and curled like living things in the flickering lantern light. He stepped closer, eyes scanning the cryptic symbols etched deep into the ancient rock, patterns that seemed both chaotic and deliberate, a silent language frozen in time. His fingers traced the cold stone, searching for meaning. The journal's warnings echoed in his mind. The canyon remembers those who trespass. What did it mean to remember? To the untrained eye, these marks might have been mere graffiti left by passing climbers. But Ethan's gut told him otherwise. The symbols spiraled into cycles, figures entering the canyon, vanishing into shadow, and melding with the landscape, as if swallowed whole. It was as if the canyon trapped not just bodies but souls, weaving them into its memory. A shiver ran down Ethan's spine, the air thick with an energy that pressed on his chest, making each breath a conscious effort. Suddenly, his radio crackled, the static breaking the tense silence. "Ethan?" Lucas's voice was sharp, a mix of excitement and disbelief. "You need to see this." Ethan wiped dirt from his face and glanced up toward the drone feed flickering on his wrist screen. The image sent a jolt through his chest, a figure standing motionless at the cavern's edge, shrouded in mist but unmistakably wearing climbing gear. The silhouette was eerily familiar. Broad shoulders, a worn harness, the same stance Nathan had once held. "Is that?" Ethan's voice caught, hope and fear intertwining. "Could it be him?" "Looks like it," Lucas replied, eyes glued to the screen at base camp, fingers deftly maneuvering the drone closer. "But he's not moving, almost like he's frozen in time." The radio fell silent except for the low hum of the drone's motors, tension thickening in the space between them. Ethan's heart pounded, not with relief, but with a heavy uncertainty. If Nathan was alive here, why hadn't he moved or called out? What had trapped him in this frozen moment? Ethan swallowed hard, pushing the dread away. "I'm going to approach carefully. If that's him, I need to reach him." "Be careful, Ethan." Grant's voice came through the radio, steady but edged with concern. "This place isn't natural. We don't know what we're dealing with." The cavern's strange glow pulsed rhythmically, casting long, writhing shadows that danced across the walls like living specters. Ethan's boots echoed softly on the stone floor as he moved forward, every nerve alert. The symbols on the walls seemed to shift in the flickering light, their meanings slipping just out of grasp, whispering secrets in a language older than memory. He stopped just short of the figure, the air electric with silence. Reaching out, Ethan called softly, "Nathan? It's me, Ethan." His voice wavered, barely more than a breath. No response. The stillness was suffocating, broken only by the faint drip of water echoing somewhere deep within the cavern. Ethan's gaze locked on the figure's face, or rather, what should have been a face. The faint outlines were blurred, as if the man was both present and intangible, caught between worlds. A cold wave of realization swept through Ethan. This wasn't just a canyon. It was a tomb, a prison holding something far beyond his understanding. He lowered his hands slowly, fighting the urge to reach out and pull Nathan back from whatever limbo held him captive. But the shadows stretched longer, coiling around the cavern like tendrils, and the glowing light flickered uncertainly. This place isn't just a canyon. It's a prison or a gateway. Ethan's breath caught in his throat as he steadied the radio microphone, eyes fixed on the flickering drone feed projected on the cracked screen. "Nathan?" he called, voice low but urgent, cutting through the static that crackled with every word. The fog inside the cavern swirled like living smoke, thick and suffocating, masking the jagged walls in ghostly white. Then, through the mist, a figure slowly emerged, a lone silhouette clad in worn climbing gear, standing motionless just beyond the drone's reach. Ethan's heart thundered in his chest. The figure turned. The face that met Ethan's gaze was unmistakable, pale, hollowed, but achingly familiar. It was Nathan, or someone who bore his likeness like a faded reflection in warped glass. For a moment, time stretched thin, the world shrinking to that trembling image. Ethan's fingers tightened around the radio, trembling as he whispered, "Nathan, can you hear me? It's me, Ethan." But the figure's eyes held no recognition, no spark of life, only a distant, haunted emptiness that sent a shiver crawling down Ethan's spine. The image began to warp, flickering like a faulty lamp, colors bleeding and fading until the figure blurred and dissolved, swallowed whole by the cavern's eerie glow. The drone's feed sputtered violently, static clawing at the edges as the signal faltered. "Lucas, talk to me," Ethan barked into the radio, voice cracking with desperation. Back at base camp, Lucas's fingers flew across the controller, sweat purling on his brow as he wrestled with the unresponsive drone. "I'm losing him." Lucas's voice was strained but sharp. "Signals dropping fast. I'm trying to regain control, but the fog, it's messing with the sensors. Ethan, you need to get out of there now." But Ethan was frozen, eyes wide as the cavern seemed to shift around him. The walls pulsed, closing in like the breath of a sleeping beast awakening. Shadows stretched and folded, morphing unpredictably. Sometimes narrow corridors became vast, cavernous rooms, only to snap back into tight squeezes that threatened to crush his ribs. The air tasted cold and metallic, and a deep, almost sentient silence pressed against his ears, broken only by the faint echoes of distant dripping water. A chill like icy fingers crawled over his skin, raising goosebumps that prickled with fear. "This place?" Ethan muttered, voice barely audible. His fingers brushed the rough stone walls, searching for any steady anchor in the canyon's restless grip. "It's not just hiding him. It's alive." The thought wasn't a theory anymore, it was a certainty gnawing at his core. The canyon fed on more than just the bodies of those who vanished here. It thrived on fear, doubt, and time itself, twisting memories and hopes into a trap with no escape. His mind raced, trying to untangle the maddening puzzle that Nathan's journal had hinted at but never fully revealed. What was this place? Prison? A labyrinth? A cruel mirage designed to consume souls? The glowing walls seemed to pulse in response, as if the canyon itself were listening, waiting for Ethan's next move. He swallowed hard, forcing his legs to move forward despite the terror curling in his stomach. "Lucas." Ethan's voice was steadier now, though shadows lingered in his eyes. "If this is some kind of trap, I need you to keep watching. If I don't make it out, you have to tell the world what happened here." The radio crackled with static, Lucas's reply barely breaking through. "I'm here, Ethan. Keep your head. We'll get you out. Just don't give up." Ethan's gaze drifted back to the drone's last fading image, the empty, glowing cavern where Nathan had stood moments before. The haunting absence left an ache in his chest, a weight of sorrow and fear that threatened to pull him under. The canyon's eerie pulse matched his racing heart, a relentless rhythm of menace and mystery. With slow, deliberate steps, Ethan ventured deeper into the shifting maze. Every sense was on high alert, the faintest whisper of movement, the brush of unseen eyes, the cold touch of unseen hands. Time seemed to warp, seconds stretching into eternity as the canyon toyed with his mind, conjuring fleeting illusions of his brother's voice and laughter, only to snatch them away like shadows at dusk. He clenched his jaw against the rising panic, forcing himself onward through the labyrinthine gloom. The canyon's power was overwhelming, but so was his resolve. Somewhere ahead lay the truth. Whether salvation or doom, he had to face it. I have to find the way out, before it's too late. Ethan's boots scraped against loose gravel as he edged along a narrow ledge barely wider than a man's foot. Below him yawned a black pit, swallowing the faint light that filtered through the cavern's jagged opening. His breath came shallow and quick, each inhalation tinged with the dusty scent of crushed stone and damp earth. Every muscle in his legs burned from constant strain, but he forced himself onward, clutching Nathan's battered journal tightly in one hand, the other pressing against the cool rock wall for balance. Shadows danced eerily, cast by his flickering headlamp, as the labyrinthine passage twisted and forked in ways that seemed to defy logic. A sudden shift in the ground sent a cascade of pebbles tumbling down into the abyss below. Ethan's heart hammered violently against his ribs. He forced his gaze forward, pushing away the panic threatening to consume him. The canyon was playing tricks again. He could hear faint voices whispering just beyond his hearing, voices that seemed hauntingly familiar. "Nathan?" he whispered, his voice barely audible over the steady drip of water somewhere deep within the rocks. But only silence answered him. The passage narrowed, forcing Ethan to squeeze sideways through a tight crevice. His shoulders scraped raw against the jagged edges, but he welcomed the sting. It anchored him to the present, pushed away the creeping dread. Ahead, the path opened into a small chamber, where the walls were etched with faded symbols and carvings. He paused, kneeling to compare them to sketches in the journal. His fingers traced the ancient lines, feeling the cold grooves beneath his fingertips. The symbols told a story of those lost, trapped between time and stone, swallowed whole by the canyon's hunger. Suddenly, the flicker of his headlamp caught movement in the corner of the chamber. Ethan snapped his head toward the shadow, heart leaping. But there was nothing, only the shifting play of light and darkness. His pulse quickened. Was the canyon watching him, testing his resolve? Back at base camp, tension crackled through the radio frequencies. Grant's voice was tight with worry. "Ethan, this is Grant. We've been monitoring your feed. Conditions are worsening. We're seriously considering a rescue mission." Lucas's response crackled with urgency. "Grant, it's too dangerous. Without clear intel on his exact location and the canyon's current state, we could lose more than just Ethan out there." Their voices carried the weight of impossible choices. Ethan heard the strained words faintly in his radio but couldn't respond. He had no time for hesitation. Every second counted. The canyon's oppressive silence was broken only by the faint echo of his footsteps and the distant rumble of shifting rock. A sudden tremor shook the chamber, dust falling like rain from the ceiling. Ethan stumbled but caught himself against the wall. "No," he muttered fiercely, jaw clenched. "I won't be the next forgotten soul." Ethan's breath caught as his fingers brushed away centuries of dust, revealing the intricate carvings etched deeply into the cold stone walls of the chamber. The air was stale but thick with a strange energy, almost humming beneath the quiet. The flickering beam from his headlamp played over detailed maps and symbols that matched precisely with those sketched in Nathan's journal. The same cryptic patterns that had haunted Ethan's thoughts for days. Every line and curve seemed alive, as if the walls themselves were telling the story of the canyon's countless victims, marking their names in a silent testament to vanished souls. His pulse quickened. This chamber was no ordinary shelter. It was a ledger of the lost, a shrine to those swallowed by the gorge, and perhaps a key to understanding its terrible power. Ethan knelt beside the center of the room, his fingers trembling slightly as they found the half-buried mechanism. It was crafted with delicate precision, a complex lock or gateway of some sort, ancient yet meticulously engineered. The metal was cold, worn smooth by time, and engraved with the same cryptic symbols that wove through the chamber's carvings. His mind raced. Could this device be what Nathan had discovered, an entrance to escape, or perhaps the heart of the canyon's secret? The thought filled him with a mix of hope and dread. This has to be it, Ethan whispered to himself, voice barely more than a breath. If I can figure this out, maybe I can end this nightmare. Static crackled through his radio, breaking the silence. Lucas's voice came sharp and urgent from the base camp. Ethan, you there? The drone's signal, it's stronger. The fog's starting to lift. You might have a clearer window soon. Ethan gripped the radio tightly, nodding even though Lucas couldn't see him. The distant promise of clearer skies was a small comfort, but Ethan's focus snapped back to the mechanism. He felt the weight of the moment settle heavy on his shoulders. This wasn't just another obstacle. It was the final test the canyon had laid before him. The choice was stark: find freedom or face the canyon's eternal claim. His hands moved carefully over the device, tracing the carvings, trying to interpret the intricate patterns as if the stones themselves might whisper their secrets if he just listened close enough. The air around him seemed charged, every breath cold and sharp. His heart hammered not only with anticipation but with fear, because the canyon had already claimed so much, and it demanded more than courage. A sudden tremor shook the chamber, dust falling from the ceiling in small clouds. Ethan's headlamp flickered, casting erratic shadows that seemed to shift and pulse with the ancient symbols on the walls. For a moment, the quiet was shattered by a low, resonant hum rising from the mechanism itself, vibrating through the stone beneath him. Ethan swallowed hard. "What do you want from me?" he muttered under his breath, half to himself, half to the mysterious force that held his brother captive. His fingers found a small lever, worn smooth as if it had been moved countless times before. With deliberate care, he pushed it. The grinding sound of stone shifting echoed ominously through the chamber. A hidden door began to slide open, revealing a narrow passage bathed in a faint, otherworldly light that did not flicker or fade. Ethan's breath hitched. The passage seemed almost alive, glowing softly like a heartbeat beneath the earth. His thoughts flickered to Nathan. Was this the path he'd found? Had this passage been his final hope or his prison? Ethan's chest tightened, the weight of years and mystery pressing down on him. Yet despite the fear, a fierce determination flared inside. He could almost hear his brother's silent plea, urging him forward. The radio crackled again. Lucas's voice was steady but urgent. "Ethan, the fog is clearing fast. Visibility at the canyon mouth is improving. You're going to need to move quickly." Ethan nodded, though his hands trembled slightly with a mix of exhaustion and adrenaline. He stood slowly, shining his headlamp down the newly revealed passage. The light was soft but warm, a stark contrast to the cold stone that had held him captive. As he stepped forward, the chamber behind him seemed to grow darker, the carvings fading into shadow as if the canyon itself was closing ranks, holding on to its secrets for one final moment. Ethan's heart pounded loud in his ears, every instinct screaming both warning and hope. He paused, breathing deeply, grounding himself in the reality of the moment. The path ahead was uncertain, dangerous, but it was a chance, a sliver of light in a place defined by shadow and silence. This is it, the moment everything depends on. Ethan's fingers trembled as they traced the worn edges of the ancient mechanism, a strange, complex device embedded in the stone floor of the hidden chamber. The air was thick and heavy, charged with a low hum that seemed to grow louder with each careful turn of the dials and sliding panels beneath his touch. The grinding of stone echoed sharply against the cavern walls, mingling with the distant drip of water and the subtle creaks of shifting rock. Sweat beaded at Ethan's brow, not from heat but from a tension that gripped every fiber of his body. He dared not take a breath too deep, This was the moment everything hinged upon. With a final, deliberate motion, the mechanism shuddered and a deep rumble vibrated through the chamber. Dust and small pebbles cascaded from the ceiling as a hidden door began to slide open, revealing a narrow passageway bathed in soft, natural light that filtered in like a fragile promise from the outside world. Ethan's heart hammered wildly, the golden glow cutting through the stale gloom like a lifeline. He swallowed hard, his throat dry, and took a tentative step forward, the rough stone cool beneath his boots. Outside, the fog that had enveloped the canyon like a suffocating shroud began to thin, revealing the jagged cliffs and twisted pines bathed in warm sunlight. The drone's camera feed, crackling back to life with renewed clarity, captured this breathtaking transformation as the mist rolled away in gentle waves. Lucas's voice broke through the radio static, breathless with relief and awe. "Ethan, the fog's clearing. You've got a clear path. This is incredible." Ethan's pulse raced, a mix of triumph and disbelief flooding his senses. The canyon's grip was loosening. Freedom was close. But before he could advance further down the passage, a shadow flickered at the entrance. A figure stepped into the light, blocking the way. Nathan, gaunt, pale and hollow-eyed, yet unmistakably alive. Their eyes locked, and Ethan's breath caught in his chest. The years etched in Nathan's face told stories of hardship and despair, but beneath it all was a flicker of something familiar, a mix of relief, sorrow, and unspoken apologies. Nathan's lips trembled as he spoke, voice barely more than a whisper, roughened by disuse. "I never thought I'd see you again, but the canyon isn't done with us yet." The ground shuddered beneath Ethan's boots as the canyon seemed to awaken in protest, its ancient walls groaning and shifting with a life of their own. A heavy rumble echoed through the narrow passage, and dust cascaded like brittle rain from the cliffs overhead. Ethan's heart pounded, every beat pounding louder against the pressing silence between tremors. Ahead, a jagged rockslide thundered down, severing their escape route just moments before they could cross. He barely caught Nathan's arm, steadying him as loose stones skittered past. "We don't have much time," Ethan said, voice tight but controlled, eyes scanning the crumbling terrain. Nathan's gaunt face betrayed exhaustion, but his eyes burned with a flicker of resolve. "The canyon's fighting us," Nathan whispered, voice rough from disuse. "It doesn't want to let go." Lucas's voice crackled urgently through the radio, the drone's camera angle shifting with deliberate care as it soared above, scouting for a safe path. "I see a narrow ledge maybe 20 meters east of your position," Lucas reported, tension evident in his tone. "It's risky, unstable rock, but it might be the only way." Ethan nodded grimly, though Nathan's hesitation was clear. "We've been trapped in its grasp for too long," Nathan said, the weight of years in his words. "It's a prison built from memories and fear. Every step forward breaks the illusion, but the canyon demands a price." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Then we pay it together." The brothers moved cautiously, their breaths sharp in the cold air, muscles screaming against the unforgiving climb. Ethan's fingers scraped against raw stone as he pulled himself up, heart hammering not just from exertion but from the fear that each step could be their last. The canyon seemed to watch them, every creak and crack a whisper of warning. Behind them, another tremor split the silence, a deep, resonant quake that shook loose a cloud of dust and pebbles, sending them tumbling like marbles down the ravine. Ethan shouted a warning, his voice swallowed by the roar, and Nathan reacted with reflexes sharpened by years of survival. "This place," Nathan gasped between breaths, "tests your will. Time loops, memories that trap you in endless cycles. I was caught in it, until you came." Ethan's mind raced. He had felt it too, the strange distortions, the ghostly illusions of climbers long gone. Now the truth unfolded with harsh clarity. The canyon was alive in a way no man should have to face. The thought both terrified and fueled him. "We break its hold, or we become part of its story," Ethan said firmly, determination stealing his tone. He could almost hear the canyon breathing, its walls pulsing with ancient power as if daring them to fail. The passage ahead narrowed dangerously, a slender ledge barely wide enough for one man. The wind whipped fiercely, threatening to unbalance them as they edged forward. Nathan's leg slipped once, sending a shower of loose gravel down the abyss below. Ethan's hand shot out, gripping Nathan's arm and pulling him back from the edge. "Careful," Ethan urged, his voice low but urgent. Nathan nodded, swallowing his fear, eyes fixed ahead. Each inch felt like a battle, the canyon shifting beneath their weight, the air thick with tension and the faint scent of damp stone and wild sage. Above them, the drone's camera captured every movement. Its mechanical were a fragile thread linking the brothers to the outside world. Lucas's voice returned, urgent but steady. "Keep moving. The exit's close, but the canyon's not done yet. I'm seeing more tremors on the sensors." Ethan's fingers clenched into fists. "We'll push through. We have to." Suddenly, a low groan vibrated through the rock face beside them. A massive slab cracked loose, crashing down mere feet away with bone-shaking force. Nathan staggered, clutching his chest, eyes wide with shock. Ethan reached him instantly, steadying his brother with a grip that was fierce and protective. "Hold on," Ethan whispered, feeling the raw pulse of fear beneath his calm exterior. "We're almost out." The canyon's shifting was no longer just physical. It was a war of wills, a test of endurance and spirit. Nathan's voice was strained but clear. "The loop, it tried to trap me again. Memories, fears. But seeing you, Ethan, it broke the cycle." Ethan looked into his brother's tired eyes and saw not just survival but a flicker of hope, fragile yet unyielding. "Then we finish it together." Their final push was a brutal trial, every step a defiance against the canyon's ancient grip. Rocks tumbled, pathways changed, and the very earth seemed to pulse beneath them. Ethan's breath came in ragged gasps, muscles burning, but his resolve never faltered. Nathan matched him stride for stride, their bond a shield against the canyon's dark will. Behind them, the ground trembled violently once more, a deafening roar that seemed to shake the bones of the earth itself. And then, just ahead, a sliver of light, soft, golden, promising. "We either break free together or become part of the canyon forever." The first golden rays of the sun spilled over the jagged ridge, igniting the canyon walls with a warm, amber glow. Ethan's boots crunched on loose gravel as he stepped out from the final shadow cast by the towering cliffs. His breath came in ragged bursts, the long hours of exhaustion weighing heavily on his limbs, but the fire in his chest pushed him forward. Behind him, Nathan emerged slowly, his frame thinner and more fragile than Ethan remembered. Yet his eyes held a fierce, unbroken spirit that mirrored his brother's own. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of sagebrush and morning dew, a stark contrast to the cold dampness that had haunted them within the gorge. From the ridge above, the base camp erupted in a wave of cheers and shouts that echoed down the canyon walls. Lucas Merrick's voice cracked with disbelief and relief as he called out through the radio, "Ethan, Nathan, you made it out." We were starting to lose hope. The sound of footsteps pounding down the steep trail grew louder as Grant Hale and the rest of the team rushed toward them, faces flushed with emotion, eyes glistening with tears of joy. The tension that had gripped everyone for days seemed to shatter in that instant, replaced by an overwhelming surge of gratitude and disbelief. Ethan's knees trembled as he collapsed into a rough hug with Nathan, gripping his brother's shoulder like an anchor to the real world. Nathan's voice was hoarse but steady. "I never thought I'd see you again, Ethan, but the canyon isn't done with us yet." There was a deep sorrow behind his words, a weight that neither brother could fully express. The things they'd seen, the time lost, the invisible scars left behind. Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat, feeling a swell of protectiveness and relief. "We're here now, and that's what matters. We're going to make sure no one else gets trapped like this." As the team surrounded them, offering water, blankets, and steady hands, Ethan's gaze drifted back toward the canyon's yawning entrance. The mist still curled like ghostly fingers, and faint shadows danced where light dared not penetrate. His mind raced with the memories of the twisting passages, the eerie glow of the cavern, and the haunting realization that the Whispering Gorge held secrets far beyond the physical world, a living force that had tested them to their limits. Lucas approached cautiously, lowering the drone controller. His usual confidence was tempered by the raw vulnerability he saw etched on Ethan's face. "We've captured everything on video," he said softly. "The fog, the shapes. It's like the canyon itself was watching. I don't think any of us truly understand what we were up against." Ethan nodded slowly. "It's not just a place. It's something else entirely." Grant, standing nearby with arms crossed, glanced toward the distant horizon, worry creasing his brow. "We'll need to document everything, share what we've learned. But I'm worried this won't be the last time the canyon takes someone." His tone was pragmatic but carried a hint of unease, a reminder that their triumph was only one chapter in a far larger story. Nathan's eyes, shadowed but resolute, met Ethan's. "I don't remember how long I was trapped. Time lost meaning in there. But we've been changed, Ethan. The canyon marked us." His voice trembled slightly as he traced invisible lines on his weathered forearm. "There's a price for every step we took." Ethan felt the weight of those words deep in his bones. The journey had tested more than their bodies. It had tested their minds and spirits. Yet amid the lingering fear, a fierce determination burned brighter. "We'll protect others," Ethan vowed, his voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "We'll share what happened, warn those who come after. This canyon won't claim another without a fight." As the morning sun climbed higher, bathing the rugged landscape in brilliant light, the brothers stood side by side, fragile but unbroken. Around them, the team began packing up, their faces bright with hope and exhaustion. The ordeal had left scars, visible and unseen, but it had also forged bonds and kindled a courage that would not fade. Ethan's gaze lingered once more on the shifting shadows inside the gorge, a silent promise echoing in his heart. The canyon had tested them beyond measure, but they had prevailed. Yet somewhere deep inside, he knew this victory carried a lasting reminder, a call to vigilance, a respect for the mysteries hidden within the earth. "We escaped the canyon, but its memory will live with us always." Disclaimer: the story you just watched is fictional. It explores themes of mystery, human endurance, and the enduring search for truth in the face of the unknown. This narrative is intended to spark curiosity, highlight the emotional impact of unresolved disappearances, and encourage deeper reflection on the limits of technology and memory.